All right. What's up, everybody? We're going to be getting started right now. Hope everybody's doing well. Let's see here. All right, cool. So let me go ahead and get things started here for you guys. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Scale Writers Podcast. I'm your host, Edgar, and tonight we got a very special guest joining us. We're diving into the world of paint, airbrush, and custom finishes with one of the leaders in the industry. My guest tonight is David, the owner of Coast Airbrush, a shop that has been at the heart of custom paint world for years, supplying artists, hobbyists, and professionals alike. David, it's an honor to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. Thank you for having me on. I
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
man, this is great. It's crazy. I was actually thinking about like the first time stepping into Coast Airbrush for myself. It was back in 2017,
Wow.
and now I'm super happy to be having you here on the podcast. And before we jump into the podcast, I want to take a moment to shout out everyone right now that's in the comments in the chat. And here we have Steven Kessel, Freddie Soto. We also got Paint Maverick, Carlos Avalar, Bugs, and Motocars 1589. What's up, guys? How you guys doing? If you guys have any questions, please feel free to drop those in the comments. And as we get into it, I'm going to be bringing those questions up further on during the podcast recording right there. And so, David, I wanted to jump in. I wanted to know more of let's start off with the history of Coast Airbrush, how everything got started.
Okay. Yeah. It is a different story than you'd hear from most. My dad used to work for another company called Pacific Airbrush, and they hired him to like start this company and go out there and sell airbrushes, and he did. But the owner fell in love with the secretary at one point and wanted to bring her son in, and kind of was pushing my dad out of the way. And I was living out of the house at the time. I'd moved out when I was 17 after my parents had split up. And long story short, I just ended up saying, okay, I'll give this a shot with my dad. We had a mechanic background. My grandfather was a mechanic and my dad was a mechanic for many years. And he just wanted to, after my grandpa passed away, he wanted to just do something different. So I was always intrigued, and I'd done a little work at Pacific Airbrush, but when some shenanigans went on, it led to my dad saying, okay, I'm putting in my 2 weeks and here we go. So we started Coast Airbrush on Anaheim Boulevard in the front of our family garage. There was an empty building there that was about 700 square feet. And that's where we constructed a whole new building portion because the city had given my grandma money to widen the street of Anaheim. So that was like our start of having a really nice, clean building, but it was only like 700 square feet. It was really small. So we started there, and it was just our philosophy, like it was from working on people's cars for all the years, is to just treat people right. Be honest, don't try to burn anybody. And my dad had made so many friends. And even when I started doing RC as a young kid, he had the people from Cox that was, very famous for like U-Control. And, I had my first like radio controlled airplane when I was a tiny little kid. And my dad worked on the guys, the CEOs like from Cox that would come in. And so it all started from that back in the day, me doing RC, but then getting into airbrush, I was like, wow, bonus, right? So we kept going, and my dad decided to leave Coast about 5 years in. And after that, I took it over. I was so afraid of not having any money that I just pushed and pushed and pushed. And I started to associate with other creative types and get involved in Airbrush Action magazine. At a very young age, I was traveling around the country teaching with some of the most prestigious people. I mean, at dinners with like Deborah Harry, Blondie, and H.R. Giger, who had done, the movie Alien, and meeting all these artists. And so from there, it just kind of kept snowballing into meeting people. And then as years gone on, my brother passed away in a really bad accident in a Porsche that we restored with the Emery family. And the Emery family is like motorsport royalty. Rod and I grew up in the canyon in the same thing, and my brother died in that canyon. Well, it was restored with House of Kolor, which is a really known, for those of you who don't know, House of Kolor is a custom automotive color line. And when I was a little kid, a friend of mine was with me in New York, and my dad happened to be there, even though he was out of the business. And my girlfriend, who's now my wife, we got the call at 3 a.m. that my brother had passed away in this Porsche and wrapped it around a tree and died instantly. A friend that was in the car walked away. And so we came back, we buried him, and we decided to renovate his old jet ski that we used to ride jet skis with. That led to a friend of mine who'd been pushing me over and over again, trying to tell me what he was doing with these urethanes. And I said, okay, fine, I'll listen. And he comes down and we say, okay, I based out my brother's jet ski. And as a long story is, I can make it short as possible. When he started showing me the paints and taping on them and doing the things he did with the candies, I'm like, what's a candy? And it just didn't comprehend. I'm like, what? You know, and then I started looking at like stained glass and windows, or looking at a sucker, like an actual candy lollipop. And I went, wow. He blew me away at what he was able to do with those. And that guy's name is Craig Frazier out of Bakersfield. So this, which didn't exist 30 plus years ago, no one had done painting like this. And traditional like lowrider murals are still semi-monochromatic, meaning that they're color on color with Craig Frazier style. A mini truck that was built by Dion, K-Daddy, and Craig Frazier out of Bakersfield, Cal Concepts, Air Syndicate. Their mini truck scene was on board, and I was into bugs. I had a lowered bug, and that was like my thing back then. And then there was also all my friends in mini trucks. So the first truck that was really done completely extraordinary to this day was Last Look. And it was back in the day, a magazine cover, as far as like the amount, way more than any other car I've ever seen in history. So that truck still exists today. Uncle Fester has it and is basically still shown and still kind of looked at as like the trade vehicle that started it all. That and my brother's jet ski. So that's where it really started, with me getting permission from John Kosmosky of House of Kolor as a young kid. Here I am, this little kid, nervous as can be, but I had a vision for what I would do with these paints. And John gave me permission. And he just called me the other day and actually just called me. He was in the spray booth at 87 years old and just calls me up and says, hey, Dave, I just want you to know I love you. And so I was like, wow, man, that's just so incredible. So from there, I met many, many other paint people like Larry Watson, of course, Gene Winfield, all kinds of guys. I just look at an old photographs of me with George Barris and the Barris family. We started just going crazy with this. And then a good friend of mine that was actually one of my groomsmen at my wedding was the publisher of Airbrush Action magazine. So that's when I said to him, hey, I really think you need to look at this. And he said, no. And I go, no, we got to take a look at this. No. And he really didn't want to do it until one day Craig did a snowboard for his girlfriend at the time's like nephew or something. And it was so awesome that he featured it in the magazine. And from there, everything just kind of grew, from the laser cut stencils to us doing the first urethane kits to the magazine articles and the VHS, if that dates me, right? My grandpa, to the DVDs, to then what we then started doing digitally, which was Coast Airbrush TV. So that's pretty much a brief history of how we really got started in automotive and helped basically create it. So there it is.
Yeah, and what were some of the early on like challenges that you were coming across like during that time period as you were starting off?
Times are different now. And so when I was growing up, we were just talking about this today in the shop. When you got your butt kicked, you weren't the quiet guy anymore. You broke the nervousness of being around other people that were like bigger than you and knew more than you. And so I really honored the guys before me. And so that for them to embrace me, it wasn't really just like, oh, hey, kid, come on in. You were the broom pusher. You were the guy that had to prove yourself by contributing something to it. And so when I would do these shows with the Last Look truck and the jet ski, many of these guys that are alive today are my dear friends, but they made fun of me. And that's your rite of passage. It's almost rather flattering, and you're onto something when the older generations kind of go, what's this kid do? What are these kids doing? And so I believed in it so much, and it really at the time didn't click about my brother dying in that car and everything that happened. It just, you kind of start to bury that, down deep for a while when you're, feeling that kind of pain. He was only 21 years old. So when all that happened, I had a belief. I just absolutely believed in what Craig had shown me. And I said, I can market this. And I stopped at nothing. And then, the ads that came out, all the other tools that then started to add to it. And I started getting calls from a guy by the name of Mike LaValle. And Mike said, I got this idea. And that was the true fire that still burns to this day. even after his passing more than 5 years ago. And so there's a documentary that they want to shoot starting this November about my story and the story of paint and before me, beginning of me, and after that we're going to do. And it's really extremely connected to so many people that are well known from the TV shows and the early parts of even Monster Garage that we were a part of. We had no idea it was going to grow to be what it is. And be careful what you wish for, because there's been many times where actually being honorable and doing the right thing has bit me in the butt financially and emotionally. And so we've gone through our ups and downs over the years, and that's certainly anybody in business knows. It could be cutthroat, it could be backstabbing, it could be downright just maliciously dangerous at times. And I felt all those times. I've been through all of them, and we're still maintaining our family's history with working on people's cars that we're honest, and we know the materials we sell, and we'll tell you the truth. Whereas me, kind of coming to Christ over the last, 54 years that I am now, but it took a while for God to wake me up to say, hey, pay attention, Dave, hear the truth. And so it's funny that I do the same thing with my customers. I might tell them something they don't want to hear sometimes, but it's because I care. It's because our staff cares, and my dad cared, and we all cared. And it was a cycle to build a family, not a team. I don't like using that word, but a family of painters that wanted to experience what we were experiencing. And the enjoyment we had from our Coast Airbrush parties that drew thousands to our shop backyard events, so much that we had motorcycle stunt teams. And when rock bands have their tour buses pulling up, to crash your party, then you've made some noise. And so we're seeing these celebrities showing up, and everything from motorsports and motocross to skate, and that blows my mind still to this day. We had a half pipe behind there. I grew up as a surfing, skateboard, motorhead, and basically, there was weed in there too at the time, so not gonna lie. But basically, the skateboard thing, when I wanted to do that years ago, and everyone's like, why you want to paint on skateboard decks? What is that all about? I got so much heat, and I'm like, no, man. And I even convinced the publisher of Airbrush Action. They go, we're going to do this competition. And the 3 top boards are going to go to the SEMA show in the House of Kolor booth. Watch, you're going to see. So I just believed it so much. I believed it so much that I willed it to be in some cases, but it wasn't just me. It was what some would call a team. They even looked at us as like a cult, or people have called it, oh, your crew, and oh, it was just such this circle. And I'm like, if it was such a circle, why did we open our doors to people at our parties and at SEMA when we threw the Hard Rock Grotto parties, which were just famous, unbelievably infamous at this point, because it brought so many types together. And so, and our parties, back in the day, I'll tell you a quick story that's interesting too. Danny D, for those of you that don't know, was a really good friend of mine in so many ways, because as that, being a part of the mini truck culture, and then of course Danny and lowriders, we knew each other 30 years ago. And when we would do our coast parties, I invited the car clubs, and it was not as accepted as it once were, especially amongst like a bunch of white people versus like all these brown guys coming in that are traditional lowriders, which I loved. I grew up in Fullerton, so I had friends on both sides of the tracks, as they say. And, I love the culture, absolutely love it. I'm not going to have to dress the part or try to act the part, because I think that's just not who I am. I'm not going to go out there and buy the starter kit, the Halloween starter kit, and be something I'm not, right? But I did love having Danny there, and he was my liaison to the lowrider industry, right? And so when I brought these cars to our coast parties that had all this art, everyone was like, what are these gangbangers doing here? What are these guys doing here? And I'm like, go talk to them. Go check out their rides. And you know what? At the end of the day, I had people coming up to me going, man, I feel so ashamed that I judge them, and that I go up to these guys and they're so cool, and their cars are unbelievable. Unbelievable. This is incredible. And I go, exactly. And so Danny was a big part of that, and God rest his soul. He's no longer with us. And I had the opportunity to talk to him just days before his passing. And that was a hard funeral to go to, very hard funeral. So when I talk about those trying times, it's when you make these relationships with guys you travel with and live with. You eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You do shows. That's the difficult part of this family that we have. But definitely, you learn to get past it, and you honor them by bringing them up in podcasts just like this.
No, definitely. Yeah, I got the opportunity to meet Danny D up north. He did an instructional class with Armando Serrano.
Yeah,
This was some years back, and like you said, going back to the skateboards, that was also something that was a subject that was used as like a canvas,
sure.
and man, that's like such an excellent like canvas for for a lot of people to use, especially when they want to get into introductory custom painting and just it's sky's the limit when it comes down to the board deck and just having somewhere to store it, let it dry, and work
Yeah.
around it.
It's the skate culture, and we used to like draw on our skateboards, but when we bought boards when I was younger, it was about the designs. And there's another guy that's a customer and friend, Craig Stesick. And if you do your research, you guys ever heard of Dogtown?
Yep.
Okay, right? Venice, Ghetto by the Sea. I grew up with those guys, literally skated with them, and I was the young grommet that they pushed around. It was like my ramp at my house, and I wasn't allowed to skate it until they were done. That's just your rite of passage, and you just accepted that. So to this day, Jeff Ho, who is literally still making boards, was one of the founders, along with Craig Stesick, of Zephyr. Skip Ingram was the other one, and so all three of those guys started Zephyr and started Dogtown. And so the skateboard culture and the ghetto culture, Jeff was just in here. Jeff O was just in my shop the other day. And it's taken me about 30 plus years to get him to try House of Kolor. He finally did. So,
Oh, nice, man.
some of these guys are just so true to it. And Craig Stesick was the one that started to do ads in magazines that weren't just like some prim and proper, like Barbie and Ken looking, creatures that you looked at in a magazine. Buy my clothes. He took it to the street. He brought the street to the magazine. So Craig Stesick really was an artist. He still is. And he works for companies like Hurley, and he's just so amazing. And so I have a picture of me with a skate deck that I did at Danny D's Skate or Die. And it was my trade board to other artists. And I paid tribute to Dogtown, and I lit it up with our LumaLOR, our electric paint. And I have a picture in our lounge with Craig Stesick with me in that board. And even Tony Hawk's got a LumaLOR board. So
Oh, what? That's awesome.
It's pretty cool, man. And so, there's a lot of history behind Coast that we want to share and let the people that do respect where this came from, so that they can pass it on and inspire them to bring something to the table. Don't go buy the Halloween costume and pretend to be, Mr. Cartoon, which I've known for a gazillion years too. I still have some like crazy things from him from 30 years ago. And, but be yourself. Go out and be yourself and be a creative type. Bring something to the table. As they say, bring your own booze, bring your own food, but bring your own art. Use what we're giving you as tools, but let's see something new. Let's see something cool.
No, definitely. So, how I mentioned early in the podcast, in 2017, I was stepping in building model cars, and I wanted to take my builds to another level with the paint. And I had a friend who I still talk to from Oxnard. He told me about Coast Airbrush. He said,
Right
"Hey,
on.
next time,
What's his name?
Rudy Munoz."
Okay.
And he was like, "Next time I go out to Anaheim, I'm gonna bring you with me, and I want you to check out the shop called Coast Airbrush." And we go over there. He starts telling me about pearls, the candies, and metallics, everything that you have that's House of Kolor, right? And he knew more about the House of Kolor because I know you sell various other brands.
Yeah.
And one thing he was telling me, what I really like about this store is that if you just want to try out 1 ounce, 2 ounce, 4 ounces,
Yeah.
you could start off with that. Later, if you want to buy more paint, you can do that. But for now, this will work. And we ended up picking up some stuff, taking it back, and he started to show me, look, you could test this out in spoons before you spray it on your model car.
Sure.
So once I started working with the House of Kolor, I started meeting other people that were building lowrider cars. A crew called Down to Scale that's there in La Mirada, Anaheim, and parts of LA, and also Armando Flores and other friends that were using House of Kolor. So the more I was learning about it, I was like geeking out, right? And I was like, man, there's so much you can do with it. But I always felt like that was a very introductory, like a great paint to start off with, especially jumping into custom, for like customers out there or just people that want to try it out for the first time? What would you recommend as far as starting point with like House of Kolor, like they want to jump into
Well,
that?
as an RC guy myself, since I was a kid, I started flying planes, and I got my pilot's license at age 17. That was a trajectory I was going, is to be a commercial airline pilot or go into the military. I smoked a little too much back then to go into the military, so that wasn't really what I was going to do. So with all that going on, I still always did the cars and the boats and the helicopters, and I've got great stories there too. I've been with one of the CEOs from Traxxas, and I did a paint job on this boat right here, right? And they copied it. My wife bought it for me because we have a real one, like a boat, a DCB, and she said, "Oh, I got this for my birthday," because I knew you were going to paint it anyway. So I ran into him, and he actually took it and ran with it. And so the hobby stores never got into airbrush, to answer your question. That's where they would actually piggyback with us, and we would work with them. And we'd be like, okay, let us show you what's going on. So to get started, it's not super easy, but it's super easy to be derailed, because there's so many people that have taken what we do and they've diluted it down, literally. So when we talk about putting 4 coats on something, it might take 9 coats with somebody else's blend, right? And so they build up film build, they crack, they have issues. This is what we're doing with our short videos right now, because no one wants to watch an hour-long live feed. Podcast, it's funny, there's people that watch these, which is great, but they just don't have the attention span. So I recommend, if you really want to get into it, talking to someone like us that can explain it and keep feeding you more and more and more, right? So with that being said, and being an RC guy, we're going to do smaller quantities of ready to spray, but we want everyone to be aware, especially after this summer where we saw competitors of ours. Well, I mean, I don't want to sound arrogant, but that's not really competing if they're selling a product that's drying before it gets there. In other words, with the heat rising, if you buy an automotive urethane, we have different temperature reducers, 4 different temperatures we spray in. So we're fielding all these calls from people that haven't even bought it from us, but they want to know from us, why is it coming out like sandpaper? Why is it not sticking when I put my tape over there? Why does my candy not look so dimensional? Why did my candy disappear or bleed down into the base? So we've created kind of a monster. And some people don't have those issues, but then one day all of a sudden they start having them. So I think talking to somebody or going on and really watching these podcasts or watching the people that are trying to explain it to you, make sure that they know what they're talking about. As they say, trust but verify. So we're going to have ready to spray kits, but we're also going to be very adamant about saying at this temperature, so that if it's super freezing or super hot, you're not going to have a bad usage of like the House of Kolor, and then go online and tell 50,000 people, oh, that House of Kolor sucks. It didn't stick. It didn't do this. Knowledge is the key. And so we see that just being pushed way on the side. Like it's just, it's gotten bad to where it's racing to the bottom for everybody to maximize profits. So it's taken a lot out of our pocketbooks, which is also causing the good companies to raise their prices. So not to go off on a tangent, but these are the behind scenes that people don't see. They don't see like what goes on like we do, because it affects us. And so we also see it when somebody spends their good hard money on a product and then have these issues. And there's a lot of guys that do RC that very quickly jump to doing somebody's motorcycle that then leads to doing somebody's car. When you get into that scale, and you guys all know, or some of you don't know, when you take something apart, prep it, body work it, sand it, and get it to a point where you want it to go out into the field and not have problems, one problem could nuke your company. It can nuke your reputation. So I wouldn't want you to recommend a restaurant to me, and I go to that restaurant with my wife, and we're going to go home, man. We're going to maybe, have some intimate time, and all of a sudden we both got to run to the toilet because what you just sent us to is a horrible restaurant. So I'd like to think that if people don't like me personally or some of my staff, they can look past that at points and say, gosh, these guys really do care, though. They really care about what they're doing. They're giving it to us straight. They're not diluting color. They're being straight with us. So I think in today's day and age, we'd like to see more of that grow, just as we've seen, like with the Red Cats. We were going to start selling them right before I started going into some other situations with paint companies. We wanted to be like a huge hub for the Red Cats. I knew it was going to be a hit. Without a doubt, I said, guaranteed. And I told a bunch of other people that just kind of also looked at me again. And even after all the success that we did have on other things, oh yeah, I don't know, that's going to be a flash in the pan. And I'm like, guaranteed no. Guaranteed. The pedal cars, it just evolves, and it gives people that don't have the ability to go out and buy a $100,000 car and build a car, it lets them be a part of it, you know. But don't sell yourself short. Don't say, well, I'm going to compromise and not, you know, buy the best stuff for my model. Look how competitive it's got. We just sponsored another show, Galindo's, you know, super show, and it's just so awesome to see, you know, people wanting to up their game, you know, and not take it lightly and be like, man, they're serious. So I look at the model builders now as, wow, you know, you guys are impressing the heck out of me.
No, yeah, it definitely, you have to invest. You know, my other friend that lives out in Oxnard, his name's Rene Jimenez. He has a collision and custom shop. He also does hydraulics out there, and even just having conversations with him, you know, he goes out to Coast Airbrush. He purchases paint from you. I get my paint from you too, and we've talked like, man, after all these years, we've never had an issue with like House of Kolor. Like, we know like the pour outs, all the things that we get. Like, we trust the product that we're getting in our hands.
It's a legitimate brand. I mean, I just did a video on it. It has a technical data sheet. It has a website where we're going beyond what anybody else has because we have semi-transparent carriers. That's for people that want to mix like red with yellow and do a fade with a solid color, right? If you're mixing red and yellow, you're going to see orange. Most people that know color know that that's what you see, not just solid base coats. Especially modelers, we have equipment, spray equipment, that also would give you less of an edge. And so you're trying to keep everything scale, especially when you're going down in model size. The molds can't withstand certain primers and things that are going to cover up the detail on the mold, right? You can't do that. You can't do that. And so it starts to ruin the scale of it. We show ways in which to use these products and design a paint job so that you can get a scale look out of it. Even scaling the size of the metallic. With House of Kolor, you get to choose between super fine, fine, medium, and coarse. And now we have a new element that makes metallic. It's like a hockey puck, so it has a top, a bottom, and cylindrical sides. So it's even thinner masking ridge with a brighter metallic and twice as good a coverage. So we're doing things for modelers. But unfortunately, the internet becomes saturated with everybody just racing to take what we help build and run it to the bottom. And so a lot of people that don't take the time to watch a podcast like this or go out and get that information, they just want to be part of the scene. They don't really progress, or they have problems. So I think if people watch these short videos and consider taking our classes, not to like plug them, but that's how you get started. Not by just running out and buying the, you know, the starter kit. There's variables to that. And those variables are that paint might not work at all. If you're in Temecula, California, where it's 95 to 100 degrees, you're going to get sandpaper on the surface. It's not going to spray good.
Yeah, that's the one thing I like about the reducers. I tend to use the RU311 from House of Kolor.
Yeah, and the video I just recently did, I give every temperature range for every reducer. And so 311, you know, if you're between 70 and 80 to 85 degrees at max, you're good. You're good. But if it starts to go above that, especially with an airbrush, unlike a spray gun, because a spray gun, HVLP is high volume, low pressure. It's large droplets. Those are actually bad for models. They are good for the collision world to do a free-flowing clear, and even a clear on a model would be okay. But when you're doing models, it's not atomizing the paint. These guns are not designed like the guns of the 70s, you know, and before that atomize. And so you don't get to do good fades and blends. You don't get to reduce your mask edge, and you start covering up the detail on the mold, if that makes any sense to you model builders. So we have like the Iwata G6, totally underrated gun. Even the TH2, which is good for models and can do specialty types of materials, right? So those are all non-HVLPs. But even the LPH80, which is an HVLP, is very special. It atomizes the paint so fine, finer than any other gun we've ever seen that's an HVLP in the minigun size. So this is where painters are going to like start looking to up their game, is with that kind of knowledge.
Yeah, you mentioned the LPH80. That's one of my favorite, you know, Nest Iwata touch-up guns. I used to see you using them back then when you were doing like the Live at 5. And I was like, man, that's a cool little touch-up gun right there. And I started looking into it, and I just added it to the arsenal.
Well, it's durable. You can get parts for it. It's got a great spray pattern that atomizes, but the biggest feature of all with most of the Iwata guns, why we're so one-sided with them, is they're designed air efficient, which means that you don't need as large of a compressor to power it. And even though you might have enough pressure with a compressor, many people are misconstrued about like what a compressor is supposed to be. Like, oh, if it's got a tank on it, it's better. Sometimes it's worse. And we proved that with Iwata's power jet that came out with a small motor with a large tank. It just kept running. And so guess what it made? Moisture. And it snowballed into just a catastrophe. So it's got to have enough what we call CFM. That stands for cubic feet of air a minute. So the Iwatas use the least amount of cubic feet of air a minute. Now that's also going to be paralleling PSI. But once you set your PSI, what that gun needs to operate at, you need to look at the CFM so that you have enough volume of air. So most of our at-home hobbyists, some of these other brands, I won't mention the names, but they're air hogs, which leads to moisture issues, which leads to paint failure and all kinds of other problems. So it's important to know about the equipment that way. And the internet is just riddled with even fake stuff, fake Iwatas. You know, if you trust the internet at this point, and especially with AI, it's just, you got to be out of your mind, you know, and that's where we're at right now. It's actually helping our business as a result of how greedy it's got, where it's just racing to the bottom. So I'm really going to use your podcast for a moment to talk about not only Coast, but other companies. If you want them to stay around, you have to really kind of, you know, trust but verify, but you want to invest in that so that they'll help you in your journey to up your game in what you're doing, you know? And so we need your support. We need you to share our videos. We need you to tell people to go to Coast, not because you like Dave or dislike me, but because it's going to help you, the painter.
Yeah, no, I really like what you're doing with the short form content on Instagram, and also sharing that on Facebook, the tips and tricks, because the more information you're putting out, it's definitely stuff that a lot of painters don't talk about. Like there's any painter could be like, oh yeah, like I know House of Kolor, like let me show you photos, look at what I did, but they won't break it down and explain to you how they got there. And then, you know, when you come out and you start explaining it, man, I'm glued. I'm like, all right, I want to know. I want to know more of the tech stuff. I really want to know, because whenever I'm going to be painting, I want to know I'm following the right steps and using the right tools.
Sure. And that's what we're here for. And the tools from a legitimate company and the binders they use, everything is chemically engineered. And so when you have these other companies that are just racing to the bottom, I got guys that'll show up on my own feeds and they'll contradict me. And I'm like, I welcome that. I really like, and we don't erase them. I like those comments to be there for everyone to see, so that when I respond, I'm not just going, whoa, we're the best. Oh, we're number one. I don't really say those things. I let the work speak for itself. And that work is my response to those kinds of people that are like, oh, we can get that binder cheaper on Amazon. And I ask those guys, I go, oh, really? Can you show me a salt abrasion test? Can you show me a UV test? Can you show me, how well of a solids that clear is? The fracture test, temperature test, all of these different things. And so when people go, no, I don't have that, I'm like, but you just put your name on it and told people that you're recommending that. Look at the potential for running to the restroom and having the runs. You know what I mean? You just recommended a bad restaurant and put your name on it. I had friends years ago that put their names on other brands of paint because they weren't getting the so-called love that they wanted from like House of Kolor, who does the most that they literally are doing what they're supposed to do. But there's people like, oh, they're not telling me that I'm the greatest painter in the world. I get it. Everybody likes the attention. And if another company comes up, but do they really care about you when they give you a product and then say, try this out and let me know how it is tomorrow? And I'm like, what do you mean? You don't have 70 years worth of paint jobs that haven't failed. You have 24 hours worth of paint jobs. That's your test? You're telling me that that's what you did. No like other test. And I'm like, wow, okay. I wouldn't trust that guy. You know, if a guy just learned to fly airplanes and you're about to get on a jumbo jet and he's like, okay, I just got my license yesterday. How long you been in school? 24 hours. How many of you would get on a plane? Now, granted, painting is you're not gonna die for the most part of it, although I have seen some crazy things happen. But that's my point. And, you know, guys will tell me, oh, we don't need that gun. I can go to Harbor Freight and buy it and you know, no problem. I could spray that paint job, but I'm going, well, let me give you the information and then you can put that to the test. And I tell that same guy, I go, you can go climb Mount Everest in board shorts and flip-flops. You can, right? Couldn't you do
Yep.
that?
Oh yeah,
So I have
but
to
you're not
use
gonna make
analogies
it.
like that to wake them up as an
Yeah.
instructor. And I have to say, I'll see you at the top of Everest, man. I'm going to get the good jacket, the one that's not going to let water penetrate. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get that. My odds of survival are going to be a lot greater than his.
True. No, it's true. Oh, I have a personal question here. This is regarding House of Kolor SG100.
Okay.
So, you know, a lot of the times when I'm getting ready to let's say flake the roof from a model or even a panel on a model, and you start spraying the flake and I take out the tape, there's always like a little like an edge buildup, right? From just from the bottom base to
Okay.
like almost feels like a little step. And my question was, if I spray or airbrush like SG100 over that flake and on the body, will it kind of fill in that little step for like the tape outline?
It's not a 2K clear, and so it's not going to have a heavy film build, right? But I don't want to go too far into this, but I will tell you what you're doing kind of wrong, right? What you're doing wrong is you're not really using a true carrier. If we made every paint that way, you know, pigment, you know what pigment is, right?
Yeah.
It goes into a binder. Every good paint company has this. It's a milky white binder. Those are suspension agents so that when you mix everything together, like a formula for paint, it has just the right amount of pearl and just the right amount of metallic, just the right amount of pigment. If I took this bottle and I literally went to put it in my flake, I ask you this, how much intercoat are you mixing with your flake? Do you know what is the proper ratio?
Is that the transnebula you have right there in your hand?
This is transnebuli. It's a fancy name for what used to be called SG150 flake and pearl carrier from House of Kolor. It's been around forever. It really has. They just gave it a new name in the Shimmerin 2 line when we started that years ago. But what happens is you're doing more coats of flake in some areas. If you have less binder with that flake, it could have fracture points where it cracks, or you put tape on it, or you have a huge edge. You know why you have that edge? Because one flake is landing on top of the next. Because it's mostly all flake. It's not dispersed and suspended. If you were in outer space and you're floating, right? Picture you as a piece of flake floating. That's what it does inside of a product like this. It floats. So immediately when you take intercoat and you reduce it down, there's no suspension agent. So many of our guys out there are making paints that way too. That's why their candy jobs are cracking. They're stacking too much of it. It's not a structural product. This product, I wouldn't use it as an intercoat because if you go to sand it, it's a little bit, I want to say gummy, right? And so it's hard to kind of provide a scuffed surface to it after it's been sprayed. Intercoat would be better. And intercoat is used when you do a metallic or a pearl in the art world. You can immediately put it over there so it fuses together. It's called cross-linking, why it's still wet on wet. And now we have a surface we can scuff. Because technically speaking, with House of Kolor, after 4 hours, if you smelled your model, you won't smell anything. The gases are gone. So even though it's dry to the touch, the clear coat doesn't sink into it. It doesn't knock on the door and say, hey, buddy, let me in. It lands kind of on the top. And so when the clear cures and shrinks, it's pulling away from the paint. You understand? Right? So there's two ways of adhesion, mechanical and chemical. So if you clear coat over your model within 4 hours, you're generating what we call 100% adhesion, 100%. So when you're doing intercoat with flake in it, as it's settling in the cup and you're spraying it, you're putting a ton of flake on one side that's overlapping and stacking. So it's becoming weaker and weaker and having a longer time to gas out. And you're getting more and more of an edge. Your flakes, if they're dispersed within a product like this, they're not going to stack as much. And so your edge is going to go down. Your durability is going to go up and your binder is going to go up. If I take this and I add a whole jar, 4-ounce jar of flake, if I put 4 drops in it, is that enough binder? I'm asking you.
Yeah, you're going to need more.
Really?
Right?
Okay, what if I put 10 drops in there? What do you think?
So you said 4 ounces of flake.
4 ounces of dry flake, and I put four drops of this in there. Is that enough binder?
Oh, nah, that's a lot of flake you got right there.
My question to you next, my third question is, what is enough? And is it in a suspension binder? So although you can use intercoat and get away with it on many occasions, you don't graduate to like reducing your edge, right? This is a dissimilar product, so it doesn't produce the edge because it floats the flake. But also, when you're using a product like this versus intercoat, it's not going to settle. And so you can't put a bolt in the cup. I would tell you to put a marble in the cup and just close the valve off altogether so that you don't have to sand off all that expensive paint and start over again. Because you can't shake a gun as you're going down the side of a car. You just can't. And even with our PPS cups without the vent holes, you're not going to prevent it from settling. Once you've reduced it at 1-to-1, it's starting to settle quickly. So many of these guys doing roofs, I had a guy online offering subscriptions, and he literally was redoing a roof. And he's one of these guys that wanted to question my information. But I'm like, you're literally showing people how to redo work that you just did. And you're telling them, oh, sometimes the paint jobs just do that. Well, not mine. And so that's the information I'm giving you. Here's a guy really trying to educate people and tell everyone that we're overpriced and don't go to those guys. But he doesn't really care because he's already redoing a job and showing you that job. So using a suspension-based binder is not just House of Kolor. It's Sickens, PPG, all these other legitimate companies. So there's so many guys with paint companies now, they're popping up all over the place. But no color documentation, no TDS. There's no real good mixing. They're not even really mixing stuff correctly. And when they make these colors, they're very often, to go back to the subject, they're going over the, it's a term called being over the pigment load. So if I had this binder and I just put nothing but 90% pigment, there's not enough binder to hold it. You understand? So in the flake, let's go back to that real quick. In the House of Kolor Tech Manual, for the size of the flake, small, medium, or large, it gives the amount of binder that you should use.
Okay.
So that you have enough.
I have that transnebula right now that you're showing us. So let's say if I'm going to mix up a batch with using that with the reducer, is it 2-to-1 with the reducer?
Yeah, so that you don't have to over reduce it, you can go 2-to-1. Now for airbrush, we obviously go 1-to-1, and the atomization changes the viscosity of the material a bit because it atomizes, it dries faster. So as we go up in gun size, like a LPH80, it would be better to go at 2-to-1 and not risk, especially on a cold day, like somebody's in a garage and you're not at a $100,000 booth, you start overlapping these materials and it can crack, right? When it's over reduced. Or it can cause your candies to drive around. It reactivates them. It causes them to like build up or discolor an area because it puddles it up. You know what I mean? So, using it at a 2-to-1 is a better way to go. And so this information's all there. For me, it's as easy as getting in a car and just, there's the gas, there's the brake. I don't even think about it. You don't look down at my feet anymore, right? I go, oh, where to put my foot there? It'll be that way for you too. It really will. And so it's so remedial for me. That's why it's so automatic when I talk about videos or in classes. It just, I know where the brake and the gas is, and you will too if you just take the time to learn it.
That's what I like, because you do break it down on the videos, and it's like, at the end, I do want my work to come out nice, presentable, so when someone sees it, and I also don't want to have issues with it, like down the road. And
well, I'll let you on another little kind of tidbit. We've worked with another company called Createx for 35 years. There were some things that went on that I didn't agree with, but now we're all back on track. And basically we're recreating what we've done in House of Kolor in the water-based world, as far as having its sealers that will powder out, meaning that they sand and don't cover up the detail in your mold. We've had these forever. You don't have to add anything, you just reduce and go. And then we have what we call our hyper effects. This is a temporary label, but the guy whose mural was working on the back of me, Gear Duran, he's going to be finishing up our label for us. And we'll be launching this product line right out of the bottle, ready to spray candies, candy bases, new pearl effects, chameleon pearl effects, everything ready to go in the water-based world. And we've developed a polymer. It's basically an additive to the paint that's going to be manufactured into it that makes this stuff spray like a urethane. Dry time, adhesion, orientation of the pearl, won't cover up the detail on the mold, and will dry again quickly. So we've got a lot of technology that's going to cross over for people that are modelers in the wintertime that can't spray in their basement because the solvents are just killing them. Maybe there's a day they can go outside and actually use automotive clear, or they can use primer, but there's days where they just want to work on their project and they just don't have anywhere to spray. So I wanted to make sure that with the limited time that we have tonight to let people know that we're thinking about you. We've been developing this. It's been in the field for 4 years quietly. And so we've signed off on it 10 times over. And we have a track record already before we launch the entire line that it works. So we're not just developing it overnight, not testing it. We got it. But you do need to follow the rules so that everything, works well with it.
Yeah, like it's not good to be like intermixing stuff, brands, because then you're gonna start running into problems.
I won't take up the time with your viewers tonight, and I know I've spoke a lot. I want to let you ask me any other questions or bring up any other subjects, but we do everything too, from gas cars where you're going to clear coat over the top so you can utilize the stickers. So something that might have stickers, I take the airbrush and I tint over the top of it, right?
Oh, nice.
And we have now for modelers the 2-part 2K clears. We've had that. We were the first ones to bring that on the scene many years ago, and it's just been huge. The spray, there's been other brands that we've tried, but they just didn't harden all the way. We couldn't polish. They weren't as clear. The Spray Max is without a doubt the best we've ever seen. It's a European product and it's phenomenal. The other thing that we have for you guys, not to plug away, but
go for it. Hey, the floor is yours. You're more than welcome.
Those that want to use like the LPH80, we do have in small quantity now, like the Ronin striping clear with a catalyst and a reducer. So you can actually brush this on for people that do like gold leaf on the back of a yacht and they don't want the diesel fuel to wipe it off. This is a catalyzed brushable clear, but you add a reducer, you can spray it. And it's a nice clear. It flows out well. It's crystal clear, no yellowing, but in small quantity. So it just gives somebody who's a modeler an opportunity to buy this product legally without it being in bottles or being messed with, to where you can use it to do your own automotive clear coats. So we've got that by Ronin, and it's just basically their tinting clear, the U400, and then you use their UA100 catalyst, so that you can do these clear coats on the surface of the RC cars, or in which case, like when we paint the cars that you see here in reverse, this has got our red sealer, right? Or like I'll point out the orange one. This is orange sealer over this beautiful pearl orange that we do in our hyper effects, so that you have ground coats that reduces the film build in your models for people that are scaling way down, matchbox size all the way up to the other various sizes that we have. So we're doing things for you guys. And then I don't know if you can see this, even the LumaLOR. I don't know if it's kind of bright in here.
Yeah, I
here's
can
an
see
RC
it.
body right here that's just got a quick sample of a ghosted LumaLOR that we've done. And then of course we paint over that and create images. So many things. Even another use, because I want to cram this in. If you look at this RC car body, it's painted on the inside, but we still are using the sealer. Can you see the watermark? You see how it's a flat black over the top of the gloss? How would you get that? You're going to go to the Autoborn sealers. They have very little film build whatsoever. So there's like no edge here, right? But when it dries, it not only sticks and adheres and is durable without any clear on it, but it dries completely matte finish and uniform with no blotchiness. So all those colors, they're phenomenal. So we're creating like these watermark effects that you see, right? So there's so many things that we do, and I don't have it on here now, but I'll just bring up a few of these to explain, like our dry flake. This is going to be a flaked out body that I did, right? So those of you that don't have a big gun that want to successfully flake, many of these other products too, this is all done with a water base with our binder system and a dry flake adapter or dry flake gun that you can do full legit flakes in any size without having to have a big spray gun. Problem with the big spray gun, you're guaranteed on a lot of these models, guys are putting too much flake. It's starting to take away from the edges and the detail of the mold. The other thing that we do, corroded metals. This is literally where you can do real rust and patina, legit rust and patina on there, right? So we're not new to this industry. For 35 years, we even used to do all the old IMS shows, but we're bringing what is on large scale that we've had success with down to you guys on small scale, and wanting to give you the information to up your game, to be at the top level of what you want to do. And we're going to be starting to do some competitions ourselves, especially on the Red Cats. I've got guys in my class this weekend taking our LumaLOR class, where the complaint is everybody at every lowrider shows cars look a lot the same. There's a few details here and there, but everybody's doing silver base with candies. I still love it. It's timeless, but guess what? It's not going to win competitions in the future, and it's not going to really perpetuate. So we're showing our new chameleon base coats. We're showing the LumaLOR. And so this weekend's class, I already did a private with a guy who's going to work on a project called Cholotron. And he already won. He already won a competition at LA show. And so they're reaching out and saying, I want a private. I want you to teach me this stuff. Because if you saw the skate deck, which was kind of a tribute to Danny D, this also lights up. It has electric paint that lights up the graphic. I used some of Danny D's kind of colors that he liked to use, and just to kind of, pay tribute to him. But it's a skate deck to also promote our skate competition that's coming out this week. We're going to have it posted. And there's some huge prizes, man, really big stuff. But we're trying to give people that kind of push to say, hey, show up and do something different. So the lowrider scene is on fire right now. I only have a couple spaces left in this weekend's class. It was thrown together because I had so many people that want to do privates. And I said, can you guys just get together? Because I've got a 100-foot yacht to do coming up in about a month and a half, a Ferrari, like some big projects. And we just don't have the staff we once had, So we've got to get new instructors, the ones that passed away, and even one of our own here, Tom McQueenie, who was really big into the car scene, truck shows, and a builder and painter. He passed away about a year and a half ago. So we've just had a lot of tragedy, but from those trials comes greatness. And so I'm digging deep into my little bag of tricks, and I haven't shown everything yet. So if you want to get in on a class, give us a shout here at Coast. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on, we don't have a TikTok yet. I don't know if we can manage all that, but also Facebook, and then come into the shop and ask questions.
Yeah. Here in the comments, my friend Renee, Pacific Coast Collision, he mentioned he's going to be going there to the class. He's going to be taking your LumaLOR.
Yep.
Yeah. That's cool.
It's quickly going to become a big deal. The reason it hasn't, I get people going, how come this hasn't blown up? Is because when I did a Jeep at the SEMA show, if you guys don't know SEMA, I've been going there for years. And MagnaFlow is an exhaust company. They started right next to my house in Rancho Santa Margarita. Matter of fact, one of my old employees, Ryan's little brother who works here, he works for MagnaFlow now. He used to work here. So he's a trader. He left us, went to MagnaFlow. But we did a Jeep. Me and Rhino tag teamed it, and it was for Jeep Chrysler, and it was one of their electric hybrid Jeeps, and it was in the MagnaFlow booth, and I'm going, this is center stage of SEMA. Huge company, center stage, all the excitement there, and I'm going, wow, we're going to kill this. But it was kind of interesting. We didn't necessarily kill it, and we found out why. Because people were doing this in front of the Jeep. They kept doing this, and even the people in the booth are going, what is going on? We found out that people thought it was a projector, that we were projecting the image onto the Jeep, that it was, because it was invisible. I had the paint breathing in and breathing out and disappearing in the graphics, and the whole thing had graphics on it. And then the logos were there full time, but they also lit up. And so people were just, when they would ask me, when I'm standing there, I go, no, it's electric paint. And they're going, so what do you charge it with? Like, meaning the sunlight. I go, no, it's not charged by sunlight. It's not glow paint. Well, no, yeah, but how do you get the light on it to keep it to charge? They just kept going. And I'm going, no, there's wires connected to it. Literally to the point where I'd pull down the tailgate, show them the board that has the inverters and the power sources with the wires going to the Jeep. So it's so ahead of its time, in my opinion, and I've been doing this a while, that it still hasn't registered. But once a few people at these shows, Jonathan Marcato and Jaime have taken my class, and they aim to bring a lot of their A game with it. You're going to start to see it. You have to. And here's the thing. It's not like LED lights aren't appreciated, but I always kind of, when I think LED, I always thought about going to like Pep Boys or AutoZone and getting the light kit. It's not a clean light. It's not an even light. And so this is a way of which you're looking at lighted surface, but it's like being able to see the paint job at night and then being able to control its brightness or inputs. So this is revolutionary. It really truly is. It's going to be a big deal. It's going to be very big. And here's the best part. Are you ready? House of Kolor already has the system in line. They already
Oh,
have the
no way.
semi-transparent colors. They're already ready. You can buy that red, yellow, blue, or green, or even black or white, and use it right over the top of the LumaLOR. Boom. Because candies you can see through, but I started with candies, and I loved it at the time, but now I don't even use candies really. I use those semi-transparent colors that are already ready to go. I thin them and spray them. Done. So we already have a paint system that nobody else has still. They need to catch up, you know?
Yeah.
They need to stop trying to copy House of Kolor. And as I said earlier in the podcast, bring something to the table. You know, be that guy or gal that brings something to the table that we can see.
Yeah, right now I'm reading the comments. Freddie Soto, he says it would be nice to have a spray can. Is that available in spray can form, or does it always have to be airbrush?
Well, here's the best part too. It's my 12-year-old did it as a class project, but you need to understand it's a layered process. So these are conductive materials and insulators. Those words meaning that if you don't put it down correctly, it's not going to work good. So aerosols is kind of tough. We've tried it. We're working on it. We may have that licked, but the problem is it's drying the material too fast. And that's the big part. You've got to, in order for this to be a conductive material, each 3 layers that we put down of the first product called backplane, it'd be like you know what a fuse is, electrical fuse?
Mm-hmm.
If a fuse is really thin and you put too much current, what happens? Pops the fuse, right?
Blow it out.
If this has got current going through it, you need all those layers of paint to what we use the term emulsify. They need to melt together to make a solid fuse. If it's not melted together, the current doesn't go through it correctly. So although I can make the aerosols work, the average person would have difficulty if they really were spraying in a temperature condition that is not good for it. And so it's limiting. And that's the variables, as we call in the world of paint, variable change, right? So yeah, the other good part is that not everybody's going to do it, right? If you make it too easy, it's just like taking, it's like if somebody took silver base coat, sprayed a few flakes on it, and then just taped out some graphics and sprayed candies. Oh, wait a minute. That's what everybody's doing. You see my point?
Yeah.
Everybody's doing it. Who's going to push you to stand apart before everybody's paint job starts looking the same? So we have to make things that have a little bit where it's not the average person that's just going to go out and say, oh, I bought the starter kit of LumaLOR and here I go. There's a little bit of mystery. There's a little bit of knowledge. And so that protects you. So right now I've got guys every day, which by the way, Ryan, there's a guy that wants what painted? A bicycle, LumaLOR? Yeah. I get these emails of people that want jobs every day. I'm trying to keep Coast Airbrush good, so I've had to stop painting for a while, and I painted to a point of fracture where I couldn't do any more paint jobs, and most of which I don't even post online. Mostly because I don't want to appear to be competitive with our customers. If it's the Dave show, as my wife would often say, you know, watch it, Dave. You don't want to be that guy. And I go, I don't, but I need to get that info out there. So I don't put myself, I don't sign a lot of stuff and say, hey, me, especially when I'm trying to sell it to guys that I'm training it to. And I don't want to try to overshadow them, you know, so I don't think that that's even fair. But I make it available to everybody. I make this knowledge available to everybody to a point where it's like, step up to the mic, be a part of the family, not a team. It's not a team. Because last time I checked, I watched football, and some of my favorite players, they transfer to other teams. Sometimes those teams, they lose, and they lose big. So I don't like to look at things as a team, you know, although I still love sports and I still love football, but I don't look at it as so much as a team as I do as a family, you know, because family's forever. Teams, hey, the people on those teams, they come and go.
Yeah, I have another question here. This is coming from Builds by George Juarez.
Uh-huh.
He wants to know if you can make a model/RC section on the website, like a dedicated kind of section, I guess, for that.
We are wanting this winter to switch over to Shopify, a different platform. We've wanted to for a long time. I'll tell you what, I don't want to like play on sympathies, but because we stayed true to what we do, and the resin factory that burnt down, to people that I've lost, a lot of people have passed away that I'm close to. My own marriage was having issues as a result of, you know, me working too much and not paying attention to my family. You know, so I'm not a perfect person. None of us are, man. That's why I'm running off after this to my men's group. I am a part of a Tuesday night men's group, and Wednesday night I'm in a marriage ministry. And old Dave would have been like, okay, let's go get a cocktail and I deserve to relax. But, you know, I'm trying to do something that's bigger than myself and not be selfish. And I'm at 54. If I die tomorrow, like I've watched some of my friends at the same age die, I want to now leave a legacy for my children that to be proud of. My daughter's coming onto the scene slowly, but she is coming onto the scene, and she's already got people asking her to do paint jobs. But being the father that I am, making things a little too easy for her, you know, because you always want the best for your kids, but sometimes that's not giving them everything they want. And so, you know, you gotta, she too, like I did, you have to earn it. You know, I finished high school, moved out of the house with a job, pumping gas at the airport, lived with my feet hanging over my best friend's sofa. It wasn't even a couch. It was a 2-person sofa seat, a love seat. I slept that way for a year, man. And I had no money. I couldn't really date successfully, you know, because I had like nothing. But that's the drive, you know. Usually people, you know, they make movies like that, like Rocky Balboa, and you know. So, you know, I see people, and I can relate to a lot of people, especially in the lowrider community, that, as we know, not to like say that's a stereotype, but many have come up rather hard. And I respect a culture very much so that works so hard to get where they want to go. You know, the Hispanic culture, they're not lazy, right? Whereas, you know, I could say, you know, even at times I've been a bit lazy growing up with not a silver spoon in my mouth, with a mechanic, you know, background. We didn't have a lot of money, but we repaired and made things. You know, we made our toys. But you know, it's just, you know, you want to have to earn it too. You know, these kids these days, and this is just what all old people say at one point, you know, they're really not being as respectful as I'd like to see, and they're not wanting to earn it. They want to go out and just do it right now, you know, and so they're missing out, man. You're missing out on when somebody comes up to you, and believe me, it's an ego boost, and says, dude, you have just blown my mind. I cannot believe you created that and what you did, and, you know, and the amount of people that respect you, and, you know, and of course that's just, it's a good feeling. And that's why we build cars. You know, it's why we want to show off our stuff. We don't build it for ourselves, park it in our garage. Well, some people do, and go in there and just stare at it all night and just go, oh, you want to share it, you know? And so we aim to also bring back our shows, which include the lowrider community, of course, but also all the RC guys. So yes, to answer your question, we want to do sections on our site and even in our store where we'd like to start carrying a lot of the Red Cat products, but we need your support financially. We can't keep putting our finger in that broken dam to the point where we're absorbing all these other calls from all these other people, and people buying on Amazon and not getting it right, and just really diluting down our way of income. We can't hire more people and train them. And so good guys are going out of business. And I've sacrificed a lot of my personal and my family stuff to keep Coast going, where probably I should have bailed out and just said, hey, I'm done. I'm going to go paint and make tons of money. But I truly love the staff members that I have here. I call them the SEAL team now, you know, and I'll take 4 of them over 50 of some of these other guys as staff members. The knowledge that I poured into them, that they've then acquired and are pouring on to you, the consumer, we're proud of what we do. You know, we have that pride that I look to a lot of the Hispanic community has. You know, they've shown me a thing or two, you know, from coming from nothing to like building empires. You know, guys that I've known forever, OG Abel, just kind of chatted with him the other day. And, you know, there's guys that I've been friends with for so many years, start with nothing and build an empire. And so I don't have to dress the part, nor do I want to pretend to be something that I'm not. I'm who I am, but I'm certainly, I think, more Hispanic than most of my friends, probably because of the amount of Mexican food I eat. Morning, noon, and night. But and I just love it. But I do truly, if you look me in the eyes, I love the culture and can tell you why, you know, for the respect I have for them and what they do. And that's many years ago, you know, 30 years ago, when I was bringing those cars, you know, when everybody else said, oh, Dave, what are you doing? You know, I'm like, I don't care. I love it. You know, stop being that way. Why are you judging? You know, bring your game. And that's what I want Danny D's, you know, to be remembered by. Not so much for as much of a nice guy that he was, and what great paint jobs he produced and his other contributions to life, but that he was my liaison to the industry, and vice versa. And so that is what I really look to do is to use Coast Airbrush to create a family again that has been just in dissension because of money. I shouldn't say money itself, but as I've learned biblically, the love of money. And I'm guilty of that too, man. Nobody likes a guy with his own airplane or, driving around in a supercar. So I can luckily tell you now I don't have those things anymore. I had to sell them. But that's being humbled, and I earned those things. I worked really hard for it, man. And I use the airplane to get to places. But once you get to that point, much as some of my Hispanic friends that have taken their levels up, I watch people jab at them too. So weary that wears the crown, and my best friend since kindergarten would tell me that all the time. He's watched me go to my highest level all the way down to my lowest of lows. And now he's getting to enjoy me kind of slowly climbing back up there again. So.
Yeah. We have one last question from the chat.
Sure.
Bugs wants to know what micro tape do you carry or recommend as far as, to use?
Okay. This is a tough question for me to answer because I have so much patronage to Dan Fontaine, who absolutely he's the guy with FBS tapes. They have sponsored people, been there for people, hugged them. I mean, you can't say enough about Dan Fontaine. He's one of my instructors that works here along with Armando, who used to just be this kid coming into Coast. And now I recommended him to Iwata. He's on my team, right? He's on the, if you want to say team Iwata like they do. But I look at Armando as family. He's been an instructor at Coast and he wanted it so bad. And there he is, with Danny D and, and all of us. And so Dan Fontaine, awesome guy. But here's the thing. They only have one size micro tape left. They used to have 3, and I love it. And I endorse FBS wholeheartedly. But there's a similar product that we have in millimeter. And unfortunately, they don't have this. And so we reluctantly bring it in under the name Flake King, a part of our flake guns. We don't promote it out of respect for them. But I will tell people about it because that industry is growing. And maybe Dan will do it. We were pushing him to say, dude, you need to come out with more micro tapes because just as the RC industry is growing, and I'm telling him it's going to get bigger. Some of these guys over there started taking some of the products away because they just weren't selling enough yet. So, it's like, or they couldn't make it easy. So there's always a reason, but he needs to focus on that again. And so we have these tapes under the Flake King brand of tapes that are done by millimeter, which is different than US measurement, right? So we have 1 millimeter, 2 millimeter, 3 small micro tapes in different vinyls, which are different thicknesses. So we do have those on our website, but I reluctantly tell people because I want them to support FBS.
No, yeah, definitely. I want to showcase a few photos here of the shop for everyone to view. Let's see for the viewers right here. This is the new location at Coast Airbrush in Anaheim. I was here not too long ago, maybe a month and a half. I came down and I visited the new location, and man, it's beautiful. I love it. I love the layout.
Oh, thanks, man. We had to move. Our roof was giving out at the other place. We had already had it fracture on us years ago and create a catastrophe. And I tell you, my landlord was just here, my old landlord and dear friend, Bill Tiramino. He owns like half of Anaheim. And I, through the turmoil of moving Coast, I put him through some issues, and I asked him to meet with me like last week. And I asked if we could meet to make sure that we were solid, and that I was sorry if I created any kind of issues during the movie. He says, absolutely not, Dave. He goes, he was the one that put in the good word with this building that we got here, which is a blessing, man. It has got tons of parking. We're not next to any railroad tracks. We've got this brewery next door that we can do this huge car show at. And they've got outside lighting with tables, outside barbecue, food trucks, benches, fake grass. I mean, you name it. It's like the perfect thing to do. So we're calling it Art and Brew. And we're going to let the RC guys set up in our fenced off area in front of Coast. And then everybody else can bring booths and set up in our parking lot. And it's going to be one heck of an event, man. We're going to do this every 2 months. So like Cars and Coffee, it's going to be Art and Brew. And we're going to allow people to show their stuff. And we're going to let them do mini shows within shows. And we would love to be a part of the culture and have all of the guys use our facility, which we can offer for free, by the way, and be attached to where they can also paint. So you could have guys not only at a show, but some guys that want to be panel jamming, as we call it, That's what we want guys reaching out to us about, is using Coast Airbrush to do these events and still not only have the event, but be able to paint here too. And we're right off the 9157. So our move is like a fresh palette. You know, we just have to paint the picture. We're going to be decorating this place up way better than what you see in the pictures. It's still move-in time. You know, we haven't organized everything. And quite frankly, I'm being truthful with you, we just don't have the funds that we once did as a result of everything happening in the industry. But slowly but surely, people are now realizing what we call the truth, and they're stepping up. They're watching these videos, and man, I was, I don't want to say late getting ready, but we were a few minutes late today just because I've been blessed with a ton of people coming in, but it's been like my phone's ringing off the hook. Messages are blowing up. One of our videos got over 250,000 views. You know, I mean, we're just like, dang, man, in a short time, we're just like, dang, it's starting to turn again. So we thank you so much for having us on this podcast. It's exactly where we want to be with the audience that we want right now, because we totally care about it. And we also appreciate the people watching. You know, if you've watched this all the way through and you spread this around, we are so appreciative for that.
No, thank you, David. This was awesome. You know,
Thank you.
everybody that also, you know, was in the chat, you know, chopping it up, participating. Thank you guys as well for tuning in, and you know, thank you for joining us. It was great hearing about the history of Coast Airbrush, and you know,
Yeah, thanks.
diving into some House of Kolor, and you know, learning about some backstories on stuff. That was really cool.
Thank you.
I want to get
Look
you
for
back on in
the
the
look for
future.
the documentary. You know, I haven't signed the contracts yet because I have another
Hmm.
friend who's asking to maybe produce it, because we want it to be raw. And I'm not going to be like, you know, in makeup and hair and stuff like that as much as I probably should with as ugly as I've gotten. But for the most part of it, we want it to be raw. We
Yeah,
want it to
yeah,
be fully raw and real, you know,
yeah. Hmm.
and so people can see the story and honor my brother and my dad, who just recently passed away this last February, and even Gary Emery, who helped my dad and I restore the Porsche. I literally was reaching out to Gary. We hadn't spoken in years. I'm talking to him, and Chip Foose comes in, if you know who Chip is, and we're talking, and I didn't know Chip's grandpa was good friends with Gary's dad, which was Rod's grandpa. So our story hasn't ended with my brother dying in that Porsche and what led to everything. It's not just me saying it. You can go back through magazines, videos, articles in other magazines, and see the documentation for this story. And I mean, it's extraordinary. God works in mysterious ways, right? And He has worked in such a way now to where I'm just like, I literally sometimes I'm jaw dropped. Like when someone scares you, I just go, I can't believe that just happened. But I don't
Hmm.
say I don't believe anymore as a believer. I literally say no coincidence. So I never say I can't believe that anymore. I've seen how God's worked in my life, and you know, it's been extraordinary, like extraordinary, and you just can't deny it anymore. And so some people, they never come to that, or I didn't ask for it either, man. I didn't go out there going, God, please save me, or this. He knew my heart before I was born. He showed up and just said, dude, I got something for you. And so, you know, it's really helped me on my journey back to just wanting to be a part of what we do at Coast again.
Yeah. No, right now it's a really good time. I mean, I love what you're doing. I'm enjoying it. And, you know,
Thank you.
I wanted to thank you on my end. You've helped me a lot with a lot of the products and information that you provide. And also a lot of my friends, you know, I know them, they always speak really highly of Coast Airbrush and a lot of the
Thanks.
products that you provide, man. And I think honestly, like, if it wasn't for you and if, you know, and Coast Airbrush, there really wouldn't be a lot of people painting and doing things at the level
Thank
they're
you.
at now, because you're in Southern California and you're able to ship throughout the US, and we're able to get what we need. You know, when I place an order, you guys are fulfilling it really fast and I'm getting it in. I know I'm not too far, but
There,
still, I'm like,
there are
cool. Like,
times to address that our hands are tied right now, because we're also making sure the quality's there, or sometimes we get a shipment that's damaged, or our suppliers, some of them they're having trouble because the industry, everyone's racing to make their own airbrush or their own this. But
mm,
I hate to say this, we notice it going backwards. We're going downhill, not going uphill. They're just wanting to take what we've created and wring the towel out. And that's what happened to me too. I got really upset for a while because they were just ringing me out to the point I'm like, you sellouts, you know, you brood of vipers, as it says in the Bible. And my wife would say that to me all the time. I'd make fun of her. I'm like, what are you talking about, you nut job woman? But I understand that now. And I'm just going, man, you know, man wants to sin. It's our natural thing, right? And so they just don't care. And they're just wringing this towel out right now. So how do we come together as a people? You know, I used to tell my students what my dad used to tell me is growing up. He says, you are who you hang out with, you know? And I stopped really paying attention to that as I grew older. And I stopped saying that to my students even. And I looked at myself and go, man, I've got some people that I shouldn't probably be associating with, or I'm compromising too much, you know? And so now I just make sure I speak the truth, you know, just get out there. But you want to be around other like-minded people, but you also want to be an example to those people so that they can also share in what you have. You know, maybe not just your views, but your knowledge. So we have to break down those barriers. How do we do it? I don't have all the answers. For me, it's like following the Bible now, but I'm one of those nut job Bible thumpers, right? But that's the irony and the cliche, you know, but it works for me at least, and many others I've been associated with. So, yeah, I mean, that's my advice to all you guys. You know, I'm only 54, but that's still an old guy now. I'm a grandpa, soon to be a grandpa twice over. But my advice to you, you know, think about what you're hanging out with, but what you can preserve. And we ask you, preserve us, help us out, help the memory of my brother out, you know, help the companies that are going to try to keep those prices down and not just show up on the scene, milk you for what you're worth, and then just disappear. You know, we've seen that happen so many times that I'm like, dang, I got offered $1 million one time to start my own paint line, and I turned it down because what a hypocrite I would look like telling everybody today that House of Kolor is the best, right? And then because I got paid, now I'm telling everyone this is the best when it's really not. So I walked away from $1 million, you know, and that's a true story, you know, and I'm glad I did because they held to my morals, and maybe God will bless me with more money that I can do good things with. Maybe not, but I certainly am asking for the help of our customers to look into our history so that they can see what I say is true and not just another, you know, fabricated lie like most people see on the internet.
Yeah. And one last question before we go. Any updates on House of Kolor pink candy?
They're working on it. There's raw materials that change, and pink was one of them. And so they're not going to compromise. I do a lot of that shade, and believe it or not, I use mostly magenta. Pink is not our favorite. It's the least stable candy as far as like being exposed to the sun. And really, when I do like chrome and stuff, I prefer the stretched bubblegum, stretched blown up balloon look of magenta more. That's just me. So we're working on something that we might have ready ourselves that's stable, that's not exact, but it'll be more pinkish, just like we used to do candy black. We still do, but we've had a candy black for, I don't know, 10 or 12 years now. But House of Kolor just released their own. So be looking for that. But House of Kolor wants to make sure it's totally stable. So I haven't got an update as to when that release will be, but I've been told recently it's very close to being signed off. But unlike these other guys that'll come out with it, tell you here it is, it's the best product in the world, and all of a sudden a week later it's like, you know, blowing up on you or exploding, right? House of Kolor does put things through testing. They're going to go through a light testing, accelerated UV testing, all of the elements that pertain to putting out a quality product. So be patient, but look to the magenta. That would be my advice.
That's cool. I'm going to have to order that right there. I don't have that one right now, the magenta.
It doesn't look appealing in the bottle, right? But then when you spray it translucently, it basically, sorry, I had surgery on my mouth 2 weeks ago, so little lisp. But
you're good.
Yeah, I got stitches in there. So what happens is the magenta does look better. Like if you put it over and do the coats, it actually has a better, nicer, pinker look than I think pink does. And it's very stable, comparatively speaking, at this point. So
nice. Yeah, I'm going to have to check that out right there. Well, thank you, Dave. I'm going to let you go. That way you could, you know, continue doing what you got to do. You know, I appreciate you taking the time, joining us here. And I want to get you back on in the future. I want to have you back. Keep us updated with, you know, the new things that are happening at Coast Airbrush. And everybody, please, you know, check them
If
out
they
on
generate some
Instagram.
questions, you know, if you've got some good paint questions that pertain to RC and to the modeling industry, have them put those questions, and then we can go over them. I'm happy to show up just to not talk about myself or, you know, how old I am or where I came from, but let's just go down the list and I'll answer the questions maybe one time.
Oh, let's do that. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm down.
They say, hey, if you want to know about Dave, what how he likes long walks on the beach and, you know, candlelit dinners, then you can watch the other video. But this one's Q&A. You know, let's get right to it. I've always told other people too, I welcome any debate. Please, if you want to ask me on any other kind of debate or have a debate about paint, it's not to smear anybody. That's not my campaign. But I love when people generate these questions and want to know, like, legitimately what things are. And if I don't know the answer, okay, I'll tell you. But yeah, please come up with some great questions and I'll answer them for you.
That's cool. Man, that's awesome. Now it sounds good.
All right,
well, thank you, Dave. All right, man. We'll be in touch.
Sounds great.
And keep doing those videos, tips and tricks. I love them. Keep doing them.
I got to go to men's right now. I'm going to launch one on the polish, one of CSI's latest polish on the surfboard video that we did. So there's just a couple little tips in there. It's quick and sweet, but it's just kind of promoting that product and showing you guys how fast it cuts. And then that's going over the House of Kolor UC21, which the guy who did the video with me is the owner of CSI. He goes, this is only 2 sessions of clear with 3 coats each. And I go, yeah. And he goes, this is glass. We only had to do 2,000 grit for about maybe 10 minutes and another 6 to 7 minutes to polish the whole thing out.
Oh, dang.
So check it out. I'll post it later tonight after I get back for my men's group.
Do it. Okay. Sounds good.
All right. I'm off to church.
Yeah. All right, man. Later. You have a good one.
Take care. You too, man. Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right. Bye.